Hello everybody, on this session I'm going to be discussing fall practice, especially 5 errors I commonly see people making, how to tell if you should be doing fall practice, a few examples of times when fall practice might not help, as well as how we might look at fall practice progressively and periodize it over time. Before we get going, the goal of any mental strength training should be to increase our focus while we're climbing and aid us in our decision making regards to our safety, but also our options regards to what we should do if we are feeling nervous on the wall. And here is the top 5 mistakes I commonly witness people making in regards to fall practice. Number 1 is to assume that fear is always a fear of falling, when there could be many other underlying reasons for fear or anxiety, and we've simply highlighted the fear of falling because it's more socially acceptable. Number 2 is a lack of specificity. I see a lot of people taking bigger and bigger falls on vertical and steep terrain indoors, and then heading outdoors to climb some run-out slabs or climb some lots of ledges in which they wouldn't want to fall and doesn't feel anything like the practice they've been putting in. Number 3, a lack of varied or steady progression. I see it time and time again where people take falls from the same place repeatedly, without adding any variation which will increase their overall experience, or pushing it to bigger and bigger falls without any intermediate steps until they no longer want to take any fall practice. Number 4, only learning to let go when performing fall practice. Learning to let go too much can basically encourage us to let go anytime we encounter a struggle or reach the limit of our comfort zones. And lastly, to link in with specificity, number 5 is making fall practice unrealistic. What I mean by this is excessively taking big swings, skipping clips and doing things that might be unnecessary, especially in the context of a youth competition climber, whereas in a youth competition, skipping a clip would get you disqualified. Practicing this would be highly unnecessary and may even lead to injuries or further mental trauma. And now onto 5 things to consider when we're trying to decide, should we be doing fall practice? Number 1, is it relevant to the climbing we do? And also, is it relevant to our goals as climbers? This goes back to specificity. If our end goal is to climb a remote alpine slab, then taking fall practice is probably going to be unrealistic and unhelpful for what we're trying to achieve. Consideration number 2. Will it help us understand the outcomes of falling so we can improve our decision making? And could it take our mind off falling so we can focus more on the climbing? Consideration number 3. Can we keep the falling safe while bringing it to a point which is more achievable for us, and then progress it until it's realistic and specific to the outcomes we're aiming for? Consideration number 4. Is it a fear of falling? Or is it a lack of confidence in our belayer, our own ability to keep ourselves safe? Or a fear of the uncertainty regards our ability to do the climb, or uncertain of what holds lie ahead? And last thing to consider, are we willing to try this out long term to see if we can find a lasting effect rather than just doing it 1 session out of 10? When you consider these things, you might decide to take other steps rather than just blindly going down the path of fall practice. And now a few examples of when fall practice will be unlikely to be able to help you out. When you have a lack of confidence in your own physical ability or techniques, when you have a lack of understanding in the risks involved or how the safety mechanisms of climbing work, the fear of expectations, be that expectations we've imposed upon ourselves or expectations we imagine those we climb with have of us. Now, if we've made the assumption we need to commit to some fall practice, we need to remember that the end goal is to be able to focus on climbing and improve our decision making. To begin with, we want to keep it quite generalized and simple for us. So we might just start indoors, learning to let go, progressing on to falling off, doing harder moves, beginning to make it more specific by attempting harder sequences between bolts with a risk of falling off. We would then look at week 4, beginning to take this outdoors. This could be, again, a very safe setup with us learning to let go, progressing on to falling off a climb while projecting, and finally, attempting to project, which will have a risk of falling off, but our end goal will be to focus on the climbing. Someone new to falling looking to improve their confidence and understanding of falling we could lay out 15 or more progressions, and on one side of it we would have falling not too high off the floor with a relatively tight top rope, giving warning to our belayer. We could then progress higher and higher up the wall, add less warning to our belayer. We could then progress that onto a mock lead, again with warning our belayer, progressing onto doing it, surprising our belayer, falling off from many different positions on different routes. We could then move on and further up this list until we are getting towards going for a no or hard move with a risk of falling off on lead. Now I say with a risk of falling off on lead because our end goal should be to do something where we might fall, but instead catch the hold and continue to climb. Hope you've enjoyed this and it's been helpful for you. If you would like to delve more into the mental side of climbing and have an opportunity to ask questions regards to your own mental struggles when climbing, we do have a monthly mental strength course which you can book on our website www.rockfaceadventures.com and click book online. Thank you for listening.